Today's a nice day to work outside, and I think it's a good day to start working on this trailer. That's what's going on today on Farmer Tyler Ranch. The first thing that I want to get done on the trailer today, at least, is to get this lower gap filled in with aluminum. If you've been with the channel for a while, you know that it's at a bad height, because when a cow is standing in here and if she, has to relieve herself, it ends up all on the outside of the trailer, and I can only assume it would end up on any car that would happen to be traveling behind me. So I want to fill that in so that it's not an issue anymore. So I got this 4x8 sheet of aluminum here. This is an 1/8 of an inch thick, which is sort of jives with everything else that is on that trailer. And my plan is to just cut strips out of this thing that will fit perfectly in that lower gap. A lot of people ask me, why not use wood? Why not use, whatever other material? Well, the reason is that aluminum is gonna look the best because the trailer is aluminum, and it should last the longest. I think that if I do this right, I won't ever have to mess with it again, and I try to do things that way. So the trick is gonna be cutting these strips perfectly at 5.5 inches. I measured all of the gaps on the trailer, and that gap is consistent, which is nice. I think I am going to use my metal circular saw to cut these out, and I'm gonna clamp some angle iron or some sort of a guide on here so that I'm not trying to follow a line with my eye. I'm just cutting along a guide, and it kind of takes the guesswork out of it. So we need to add another 2 5/8 here, plus 5.5 is gonna be what? So I got 2 marks on the aluminum now, one at 5.5 and then one at 8 1/8. And the 5.5 mark is where our cut should be. The 8 1/8 mark is where our guide needs to go. So the reason that I've got these all marked out is so that I can clamp the guide on there and then double check everything. It'll be easy to see in there to make sure that we're good, because we only get one chance to cut it right. So as expensive as aluminum is, I think this sheet was like $175. I don't want to waste any. That's it right there. Everything looks good. That blade is right on the correct side of the line to cut at 5.5 inches. So I think we're ready to go here. This is gonna be very loud for me, probably not as bad for you. I would say that looks really good. It's a little bit too long. We need to cut it about 3 or 4 inches off the end. That's no big deal. I would much rather it be too long than too short. Callie the metal shop dog here. So if you're wondering, why am I using a scribe to mark the metal instead of just a permanent marker? Permanent markers actually work great for marking aluminum, but the problem is that the mark made by a marker is anywhere from, let's say, just around 1/8 of an inch wide, and that leaves a lot of wiggle room, or a lot of room for error. The mark that you make with a scribe is so thin that it leads to much more accuracy with your cuts. You take a lot of the guesswork out, and I'm trying to get these as perfect as I can. So when you're doing that, having a little thin line to work off of helps a lot. I've got all my pieces cut out, cleaned up, at least cut to width. Now I've got to cut everything to length. So I've gone around the trailer and figured out all the different places where we're gonna have different pieces. And then I have written down the measurement here right on the trailer so I know which piece goes where. This might seem like it should be pretty straightforward, but it's actually not, because the other side of the trailer has a little man door on the side, and that just kind of goofs everything up. Well, I guess I'm just gonna go grab the chop saw. That's gonna give me the most square, straight cut on the end. So that's, yeah, that's the one we're gonna use. It is heavy though. That's the first one. Let's go see how it fits. So for this piece, we might need to take a trim piece off of either side. I was hoping I could just wedge it in here, but I don't think that's gonna happen. We're gonna need to take a trim piece off. That's not a big deal. Just a few rivets. All of the pieces fit good on the trailer. I'm happy with how all that turned out. The next step is I have got like hundreds of rivets to put in here. Really wishing that I had a pneumatic rivet gun, but I don't. I've just got a manual one, which is fine. We'll get through it. But the big challenge with the rivets here is getting everything uniform and in line with each other. This will really make this project look professional rather than homemade, even though it is like a do-it-yourself type of thing. If I take the time and measure and punch out where each rivet is going to go, it's going to really add to the look of this when we're done. So I'll show you some of the tricks that I'm going to use to do this, and we'll see how it looks when I'm done. We'll start right here where the two pieces come together, and once I've got these pieces sitting where I know I want them, I'm gonna take this 1/2 inch piece of scrap and I can rest it on the edge of the trailer here, and then I'll come in here with my scribe and make a little mark here, a little mark there. Now, I'll line this same 1/2 inch piece of scrap up with the edge of the aluminum, make a mark there, do the same thing on this side, and now I've got two crosses right where my rivets need to go. When we're out here in no man's land, there's nothing to measure off of really. I'm just using the edge on this slat here and my square, and that's how I'm getting a straight line up and down. So you can kind of see the way the metal deforms a little bit where it was welded on the other side, and using that we can more or less get the center of this brace is about right there. So now we've got a mark in the center. This is a little tricky because you've got a gap, but we just do it consistent. Do it the same way every time, even if you're a little bit wrong. If you're a little bit wrong every time, then when you're done, it looks like you did it right. We'll use the same 1/2 inch plate again. And now we've got our crosses. Got this side done now, and while measuring the rivets out is very tedious and it adds a lot of time to this, I have to say when it's all done, it really looks a lot better. And then on the inside of the trailer, you can see, you can't see any of these rivets because they are in this square tubing here. So the inside is nice and clean as well. The only thing I might end up doing is welding these ends here, because that's how the rest of the trailer is constructed, but I'm not sure. I mean, these aren't really for strength. They're really just poop blockers. I mean, that's all they are. So we'll see what I decide to do on that, but so far this is turning out good. The sliding door on the back here, we're gonna have to take this trim piece off to get the aluminum in there, but that's no big deal. We can do it. We can just pop this. Might be able to just slide it in like that. Come on, you're right there. I'm about 2/3 done, and I'm sure on camera it doesn't seem like it takes very long, but it actually does take a while to do this. So I think I'm gonna finish these up tomorrow. Well, the weather has made a bit of a change today. It's supposed to clear up later this afternoon, so I think we'll put a pin in this project until then. And in the meantime, I gotta run around and do chores anyway. So let's get that done, and then hopefully we can get back on the trailer project. Well, everybody's wet, but they look fine, and I think we'll pull this feeder out of here, take it back to the ranch, and there should be a fair amount of hay left on the ground that they can snack on. Don't have to be perfect, you just gotta be close enough. I've had people ask me, and this is a fair question, why don't I put 2 or 3 bales in this feed wagon when I bring it over to the winter pasture, and then I wouldn't have to come after the hay wagon every day. And the reason that I only bring 1 bale at a time is because I'm trying to prevent them from overeating on the hay. I figure with the feed levels where they're at, that the cows only need about 2 to 250 pounds of supplementation each day. These bales weigh about 500 pounds, so 1 bale should last 2 days. If I was to put 2 or 3 bales in the feed wagon, I think what would happen is the cows would just pig out on that, and they would finish it off in probably 2 or 3 days, when that should be lasting them 6 days, and then they would have to go 3+ days without any supplementation. So by doing it this way, I spread it out a little bit, and basically the first day I bring that bale out, they can gorge on it, eat as much as they want. They honestly probably don't barely eat any grass on days that I bring bales out because they're occupied at that feeder. And then on the next day, the hay in the feeder is almost gone, and they can go around and search for grass for the rest of what they need. So basically by doing it this way, I am spreading out the supplementation so that it sort of balances it out better throughout the week than it would if I just brought a bunch of bales at once. It's a couple hours later now. The weather has somewhat lifted, probably about as good as it's gonna get today. I think the wind is supposed to kick up this afternoon, so we'll try to take advantage of this window that we've got here and finish the trailer up. While I was over here though, getting everything ready, I noticed that the chicken house was flooded because we've gotten a ton of rain in the last couple days. So I rolled one of these round bales of rice straw in here to give them some good bedding, something dry to be on. And it'll be very interesting to me to see how long it takes chickens to tear this thing up. Anyway, let's see if we can get this done. Should do it. Well, that was a ton of rivets, but I think I'm finally done. And just in time too, because it feels like the weather's starting to turn. The wind is picking up, and I think we're in for it again tonight. It's the next day now, and as you guys saw in that last footage that you just saw, the wind was starting to pick up, and it ended up getting really strong yesterday. The kind of wind that I have not seen around here for years. I think we had gusts around 50 or 60 miles an hour, and you know, maybe to some of you that's not bad, but to me, that's strong wind. So we're pulling into the winter pasture right now. I'm gonna drop a bale off for these cows. But I've got to go around and check all my hot wires, make sure no trees or branches fell on them to where they're not working anymore. And then I think we also probably ought to drive the levy and make sure that that fence is in good shape too. Just got Belly with me today. Callie stayed home with the family. Test our drive-through gate first. All right, everything's good over here. As I've been filming this video, I've been seeing comments for my last video about installing that gate, and a lot of people voiced concern that that gate would scratch your vehicle. Well, they put a rubberized coating on those rods so that it won't scratch your vehicle, and that's, I think I mentioned in that video, I was a little bit skeptical about how those were going to conduct electricity, but as we see, they conduct it quite well. You guys have been waiting for me, haven't you? We'll get the net wrap off the bale first so they can start working on it while we're getting the trailer set up. Cows have pretty decent feed over here, and if it continues to stay warm and sunny here in the next couple of days, I'll probably quit bringing them hay. But I figure, you know, they're in their final trimester of pregnancy right now. If ever there's a time to spoil them, it's now. Really. Hey, that's not for you. That's not for you. So I think rather than go up and drive down the levee, we'll just walk it. A little exercise, never hurt anybody. Okay, let's go. Poor Belly just don't know how to act without Callie around. Do ya? Well, literally just climbed up on top of the levee, and there's a fresh break right here. Looks like the whole top of this tree came down. But while it is more or less on the fence, whatever landed on the fence isn't creating a hole where cattle can escape, so I'm actually not too worried about this. Looks like the worst of it went on the other side, so we got lucky. We get back down here, we got a pretty good natural fence. Wouldn't even matter if a branch fell out there. They're not going through all those berry vines. Oop, what was that? Deer. Oh, pretty nice little buck. I almost never catch the cattle on the other side of the levee here, but you can see they got a trail beaten down along this fence line, so you know they're coming back here, and you know they're hunting this fence line too. I've always found this tree to be pretty impressive, the way it just broke off like mid-trunk. But it's been that way for several years and it hasn't caused any problems, so I'm not gonna worry about it now. We're down here almost to the end, and this fence looks as good as it ever has. But I might see a problem with my hot wire. Let's test it and see what it's reading. Only 2600, but I think I see the problem. Yeah, I think that's the problem right there. Hopefully I can get this cleaned up without getting zapped. Shouldn't be too much. There we go. Now let's test it. That's better. 6,700 volts back on this thing, up from, what was it, 2,600? So we're back in business. We got one more hot wire to check, and then we're gonna run down to the steer pasture and see how everything fared over there. Mm-hmm. 84 to 85, I'll take that. Couple times feeding out here, I've been using the John Deere. I actually like it a little bit better than the Kubota. It's a lot wider and therefore a lot more stable on this uneven ground. But today I decided I'd probably be smart to take the Kubota, because in the event that I bury a tractor, which gets ever more likely as the ground continues to get wet and muddy, I would rather get the Kubota stuck, because I think it will be easier to pull out. I could be wrong about that, but hopefully we don't need to find out. Well, the boys are happy now, so before we leave, I would like to go walk that lower fence line down there where I can't see from here, just to make sure that no trees have fallen on the fence or created any potential issues in the fence. So let's walk down there and see what it looks like. First thing I gotta do is find the fence down here. I think the fence was here at one point, but it has sort of reverted back to a natural fence. There's a creek in here somewhere, but just a ton of berry vines. Because I don't even see any old posts or anything. So I guess we're good here. Pretty much all natural fence down here. So we're just where we just were is over there. I thought maybe if I come back around the backside, I might be able to find a little bit more of the fence, but it's pretty dense beyond this. Mostly all berry vines too, so yeah, I don't think a cow's gonna be going back in here for any reason. And then the rest of the fence line that way is all berry vines. So like here is the fence. You can see the post, but we really don't need a fence here because the berry vines and the brush is so thick beyond that that they're not going to be traveling through that. Down here at the end of the line, everything looks good. Honestly, this fence line is so brushy, even if a tree fell, I don't think it hurt a thing. Well, for as long and hard as it stormed yesterday, I am really surprised that I don't have more storm damage to take care of or things that, you know, I need to do as a result of that. I'm not complaining, I'm just saying that I'm surprised. So, because of that, I guess we're gonna call this one here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.